A single father haunted by loss and guilt adopts a girl no one else wanted, unaware of her secret as they build a home. The daughter's presence begins healing his broken heart, while she secretly gathers intel. Strange men, shadowy calls, and old faces from the father's past begin surfacing, setting off silent alarms. The truth of her identity explodes during a hostage crisis that tests love, loyalty, and redemption. The old floorboards of the county adoption center creaked under his boots as Michael Turner stepped inside. The air was stale, the kind that clung to old paint, forgotten paperwork, and years of silent waiting. Michael's broad shoulders tensed with every echo of his steps. He wasn't supposed to be here. Not again. Not after what happened 5 years ago. But life doesn't follow the paths we map out. Sometimes, it drags you back to the places you've tried hardest to forget. They told him there was one child left. Just one. A girl. She'd been passed over again and again. Troubled, they said. Quiet. Unreadable. No family had lasted longer than a month. The file was thin. Her background mostly unknown. No relatives. No past that anyone could truly verify. The social worker had glanced at him with wary eyes, the kind that had seen far too many rejections. Don't get your hopes up, she warned. But Michael didn't come here looking for hope. He came here out of a promise to someone who could no longer speak. When the door creaked open to the observation room, his eyes found her instantly. She sat hunched on a bench, legs crossed, hoodie pulled over her dark hair, face cast in shadow. Her eyes didn't rise to meet his. They were fixed somewhere in the corner of the room, somewhere far away. She looked about 16, maybe younger, but there was something about her that felt older. Not just in the way she sat still like stone, but in the way she didn't try to be seen, as if being invisible had kept her alive. He stared through the glass for a long moment before speaking. I want to meet her. The social worker hesitated, then nodded and opened the door. Inside, the girl didn't move when he stepped in. He walked slowly, careful not to startle her. Hi, he said simply, his voice soft but low. She didn't respond. He sat on the other end of the bench, keeping a respectful distance. I'm Michael. I guess I'm here to see if you and a broken bar if we might be a good fit. Still, silence. Her hands, pale and thin, rested on her knees. She wore no makeup, no jewelry, no indication of who she really was, just stillness. Michael tried again. I know what it's like to be alone, he said, his eyes forward. I lost my wife and my daughter 5 years ago. Car accident. 1 minute I had everything. Next minute I'm talking to a police officer outside a hospital room. I didn't think I'd be standing in a place like this again. I didn't think I had the right. At that, something flickered. Her eyes moved, just slightly, enough for him to notice. She turned her head, just a little, and looked at him, not fully, but enough to show she was listening. That was something. I don't know what they told you about me, he added. I'm not perfect. I fix motorcycles. I live in a small town. I curse too much and forget to put the milk away sometimes. But I don't run from people, and I won't run from you, not if you don't want me to. Her eyes locked with his, sharp and dark, like a blade behind glass. There was a storm in them, and something else too, a caution, intelligence, calculation. She spoke one word. Why? He looked at her, surprised, not by the question, but by the voice. Steady, no trace of nervousness, no cracks, just that one word, thrown like a test. Because someone needs to, he said quietly. And I think it should be me. 2 weeks later, he brought her home. No ceremony, no confetti, just a duffel bag, some documents, and a quiet car ride through the countryside. Her name was Ella, or at least that's what they said in the files. She didn't correct him, so he kept using it. At home, things were slow, awkward. He gave her space. She barely spoke. She didn't ask questions. She ate dinner in silence, washed her dishes, kept her room neat. Not out of obedience, more like habit, like she'd been trained to never leave a trace. Michael didn't press. He had worked with veterans before. He recognized the signs. Not every war leaves scars on the outside. At night, he sometimes heard the soft click of her door opening and closing. She never left the house, never made noise, just movement, like a shadow moving through the walls. Once, he caught her staring at the garage where he kept his old Harley. The next morning, He found her silently handing him a wrench when he was working on it. From then on, she helped him fix bikes. She didn't talk much, but she listened well, and her hands steady, precise moved like someone who had learned to dismantle more than just engines. Unbeknownst to Michael, Ella was watching everything. She had been trained for months before she entered the system, trained to find him. Michael Turner. The FBI believed he had connections to a covert group that had once been linked to international arms trafficking. It was an old case, mostly dead, but whispers had resurfaced. The agency had a wild theory that Michael wasn't just a grieving father, but a former operative who had disappeared after a classified mission went south. They couldn't get close to him. He didn't trust people, wouldn't talk, so they planted her. Deep undercover, fake identity, false trauma story, years of forged documents. Ella had agreed to the mission, not because she believed he was guilty, but because something in the case didn't add up, and she had a feeling she was being used as bait for something bigger. The plan was simple. Gain access, observe, report. The assignment was supposed to last 3 months, but after 3 weeks, something strange started to happen. Michael wasn't like the men she had tracked before. He didn't ask invasive questions. He didn't search her stuff. He didn't snoop through her background. He made her breakfast. He let her sit in silence. He talked to her like she was really not a case, not a burden, not an assignment. And slowly, piece by piece, her walls began to crack. He once found her in the garage late at night, holding one of his old photos, a faded picture of him, his wife, and a little blonde girl laughing under the sun. She dropped it when she noticed him, her expression unreadable. "That's Lily," he said quietly, picking it up. She was 6 when a broken bar. He paused. She liked dandelions. Said they were brave little flowers. Always came back no matter what. Ella didn't respond, but she didn't walk away either. Days turned into weeks. Michael started leaving post-it notes on the fridge. Pancakes in the oven. Don't burn them, or you beat my oil filter. Time. Rematch tomorrow. Sometimes she left notes back. Need more milk, or you snore. At night, she sent encrypted messages back to her handler. Subject routine, unchanged. No evidence of criminal activity. Target displays emotional vulnerability. Each message became harder to write. The more she lived with him, the more the mission blurred. The more she realized Michael might be the only person who had never lied to her, even though she was lying to him every day. The turning point came on a cold Thursday evening. They were driving back from a supply run when a flat tire forced them to pull into a rundown gas station just outside the county line. Michael was changing the tire when 2 black SUVs pulled up. 3 men stepped out, suits, but the wrong kind. Private security or something worse. Ella froze. She recognized one of them. Victor Hale, a former intel mercenary turned black market broker. Very bad news. Michael stood slowly, wiping his hands. Something I can help you boys with. Victor smiled. Too friendly. Still fixing tires, Mikey? Thought you were done playing mechanic. Ella's breath caught. Mikey? No one called him that, not even in the files. Michael's voice changed subtly. Didn't realize you were still breathing. Breathing just fine, Victor said, eyes sliding to Ella. New recruit? She's got that same silent stare your wife used to have, before anyone could move. Ella stepped between them, not out of instinct, out of training. Her hand dropped subtly to her hip, where her weapon would be, if she were allowed to carry it on this mission. Victor laughed, holding up his hands. Touchy, relax, we're just saying hello. Old friends. Michael's hand brushed her shoulder. Gently, he whispered, get in the truck. She didn't move. She didn't want to. Every alarm in her head was firing, but she obeyed. For now, back on the road. The silence was thick. Michael gripped the wheel, jaw tight. You know him, she finally said. Michael didn't answer at first. Then, in a voice that was low and gravelly, he said, I knew a lot of people I shouldn't have. Were you one of them? She asked, quietly. He looked at her. No lies, no evasion. I was, he said, but I'm not anymore. That night, Ella didn't sleep. She unlocked her laptop and stared at the message she was supposed to send. Subject made contact with known arms dealer, behavior suspicious, request extraction. Her fingers hovered over the keys. Then, slowly, she typed, Subject compromised, but clean. Request hold on extraction. Further observation required. She didn't hit send. Instead, she closed the laptop, and for the first time since this mission began, she walked into the kitchen and said, "I can't sleep. Do you want tea?" Michael looked up, surprised. "Yeah," he said, his voice warm. "Yeah, that sounds good." And in that quiet kitchen, over 2 steaming mugs of tea, something began to change. Not the mission, not the secrets, but the space between them, as the invisible thread that pulled tighter. Not as a target and agent, but as something far more complicated. Something like family,